Welcome, my fellow questers, to Metaverse Adventures. My name's Immersive Matthew. Today is August 20th, and this is your Oculus Quest Week in Review. And as always, we're going to start off the week by talking about Quest hype cycle, including some new stats that got released this week. If that's not your thing, go ahead and look below to jump to the next section, which is going to be new games available in the store right now. I got 5 I get to review today, and there's some pretty cool titles available right now. We'll then jump in, talk about some new SideLoad apps you can go and try right away. We'll then talk about yet another co-location experience, and this one is from a big name developer that I'm sure you've heard of, and it's going to have some interesting twists that we haven't seen in any other co-location experience we've talked about yet. So stay tuned for that one. We'll then talk about some really interesting graphic developments that are hitting the Quest right now, and it makes the future of VR in the Quest and its graphics very bright, so stay tuned. And then finally, we'll end things up talking about our game announcements that are coming out, a bunch of new games, and some really cool community updates. So as always, grab yourself a drink, snack, sit back, relax, and let's get into the Quest news. All right, as I said at the top of the show, let's get right into the Quest hype cycle. Now, as you know, I've been reporting on Google Trends now for the past 3 months, and I've been tracking the Oculus Quest, the Valve Index, the Oculus Rift, and the last month or so, also PlayStation VR. And this week, as we look at the data, we see that things have remained relatively the same for the Quest as it has now for the past almost 2 months. It's pretty so much flat. We're not seeing an increase and we're not seeing a decrease. I will point out, however, that the Quest is still the most searched for head-mounted display in the world. And it's got quite a margin. Now you can see this week that PSVR all of a sudden got a little bit of an uptick. So we'll have to see what happens as we go into the coming weeks. All right, before I leave Google Trends and head over to some of the sales data, I want to quickly pause on this chart here. This is actually one that I built that goes all the way back to October of 2016 because I wanted to show how much interest around the world was generated on Google searches for PlayStation VR, for the Oculus Go, and of course I have up to the current day so we can see the Quest here as well. The Quest is in blue, the Go is in red, and PSVR is in the yellow line that you see here. And you can see that back in October 2016 when PSVR first launched, it had a pretty high peak in terms of hype. And you can see that the maximum score here is 100, and that's what it scored at the top of the line there. And then when you look at all the other devices, the Go and the Quest, it is the Quest that had the next highest launch. That's that value you see over here. That's the May 21st date. And Oculus Go's launch was back here in May of 2018. So that's the entire lifespan of these 3 devices to date. So we get an idea of where things are at. Now, I want to bring this up because you can see the long lead that we have here for PSVR. We've got, a year lead on the Go over the Quest, but here is some of the newer sales data that's been coming out, and this is where it gets a little interesting. SuperData, just this week, claims that 347,000 Quests sold in Q2. So Q2 would be May and June because that is when Oculus Quest first came out for pre-order back on May 1st. And June 30th was the end of Q2. So just in those 2 months, it sold 347,000 units. Quite a lot. When you do the math, that ends up being about 174,000 units a month. Now, of course, this is going to vary month to month. So we're very much generalizing here with just 2 months worth of data. But if we just plotted that data as is up until mid-August, or around the time of this episode, it would be 607,000 Quests that have sold to date. So that's, in the range that I put out there a couple weeks back where I said I believe we're probably in the 500,000, to maximum 1 million range right now. I don't know where it lies in that. And it looks like if we believe SuperData's claims, it would be 607,000 Quests. Hard to say. Obviously that's only 2 months and we're extrapolating, and since that time there's been a lot of supply constraints, whether that was because of manufacturing issues or because of demand outstripping the initial supply. We don't know. I'm sure one day we'll hear about it. What we do know though, and as we just saw, the interest for the Quest since launch has remained quite high, relatively speaking, compared to the other HMDs on the market. In fact, the last couple of weeks I compared it to the Nintendo Switch Lite, and again this week still it's lower than the Quest. So the Nintendo Switch Lite is just not something people are searching. Of course, Nintendo Switch itself, I'll put that graph up here for you, is significantly higher, dwarfs everything else. But here's what's interesting. And the Nintendo Switch has sold a whopping 36 million units from its launch in March of 2017 all the way up to July of 2019. So this is pretty recent data. And when you do the math over those number of months, it ends up being 1.3 million per month. And like I said before, it's going to be up higher and lower than that, depending on the month. Christmas, for sure, we're going to see it really peak. That's the average, and that's a lot more than the Quest is at 174K. So there's a lot of room to grow here for sure. And just as a point of reference, the PSVR has sold 4.2 million units since October of 2016 up until March of 2019. That's when Sony made this announcement about the 4.2 million. When you do the math on that one, it ends up being 145,000 units per month. So less than the Quest, but not by a significant margin. The Oculus Go, we got a little bit of data as well, not official. This is through Super Data and others. All the links, by the way, all the things I'm saying are below to where I sourced this material from. The Oculus Go sold 2 million actually since its launch in May of 2018, all the way up to July of 2019. This is quite recent data. And when you do the math on that one, it ends up being 143,000 a month. So sort of similar to the 145,000 that we saw with PSVR. I was surprised to see that. And when you compare those two, of course, all the way up to the Quest at 174,000, the Quest is definitely, right now at least, on average, the better selling unit. I mean, it's early days. And when you look at the data here in this chart, what's really interesting is the PSVR, when it first came out, if we're looking for any kind of patterns of what might we expect this Christmas, it's interesting because you can see the highest of high here for the PlayStation VR. Again, this is in the yellow. It's Christmas, which is right here, actually didn't really get a lot of action. It's kind of flat. In fact, we saw more action for some reason late January of 2017, but nothing significant. And from there, it kind of fizzled down quite a bit lower, and it wasn't all the way up until December of 2017, right? Actually from November, Black Friday, all the way up to just the day before Christmas is when it got a lot of its action. And again, it peaked even higher in Christmas of 2018. So it should be interesting to see what PSVR does this Christmas. That's a little bit different than what we saw with the Go. The Go came busting out right on, May of 2018 and it settled down just like the Quest is right now. But its first Christmas actually rose up even higher than its all-time high before. So this is a number here. What will the Go do in Christmas 2019? I don't think it's going to be that high. Unless Oculus does some sort of really crazy discount, like $100, make it a no-brainer decision, or something like that. I just don't see it really doing very well against the Quest. And of course, the Quest, we already know, has the second highest launch interest here, but significantly less than PSVR. Just to the point of numbers, the highest point here for the Quest, right back when it launched on May 21st, is actually 51 on Google data versus the 100 that PSVR has. So that means that PSVR is literally just about double the amount of interest when it first launched compared to the Quest. Yet the average sales so far for the Quest are ending up being higher than PSVR. But I would say right now that this data is very skewed. You can see how much higher it was on May 21st than where it is now. So those first 2 months might just be the highest 2 months we're gonna see till Christmas. And maybe right now the actual average monthly, maybe it's only 100K, maybe it's 90K, who knows? However, and this is why we wanna roll forward into the next piece, when we look at Amazon sales data, we end up with some pretty interesting data yet again. We have a milestone. Oculus Quest, both the 64GB model and the 128GB model, are officially back on the Amazon Top 100 again. Now, the number this week for 64 gig is 38, and of course throughout the week it fluctuates, but 38 at the time of this recording. 128GB model is sitting at 63, so we're sort of back to that 40s and 60s that we were prior to all the shortages. So I'm getting the feeling that maybe it really was shortages that happened and not necessarily, demand issues. I don't think demand went down. I think demand actually, based on the data, it stayed pretty consistent. I think this is what this is telling us, because we saw a dip and both products fell off the top 100 for a while there, but we could tell based on their delivery date that it was because they were in short supply. But now that that supply has apparently bounced back up again, it's interesting to see these products both in the same sort of spots they were before this all started happening. We're going back to May, June sort of time frame. They were these same sort of values. You can go back and watch my news and you'll see I reported on all this. So we're back to sort of that zone again. And I find this really, really interesting. And so I think Oculus, you had a problem. We would love to hear about it. What happened during manufacturing? Was a part in short supply? Was there a QA issue? You realized you couldn't ship more and you need to retool something and continue on? And I don't know what you did, but there's something happened, because unless we see these Amazon values in the next couple of weeks go back to top 10, or higher values, I don't think the demand is actually, never went up. I think the demand is pretty much in line with the Google search data that we've been seeing, meaning that it's been probably fairly consistent since just after launch. It's been sort of maybe slightly petering down as we saw in the data, but more or less, statistically sort of the same, relatively speaking. So that's where we're at. I'm obviously going to keep a close eye on this. I think as we head towards Christmas, I'm really interested to see where this is going to go. This is a point of reference. The Nintendo Switch on the Amazon Top 100, it hovers in the top 10, top 20, pretty much all of the time we've been doing this. And so when you look at how many units it's shipping a month, the 1.3 million versus the Oculus Quest, 174,000, it's a miracle that Quest is even in the top 100 at all. And it says that there's probably more to this story than meets the eye. Both the 64GB model and the 128GB model are selling and shipping immediately. So if you order one today, you'll get it in a couple days or less, depending on what shipping options you select. Oculus, actually, if you buy it from their site over the weekend here, you're waiting until August 20th, just a few days, to receive yours. And Oculus has been the faster shipper over the last couple of months, but I think now that inventory is caught up, you'll probably find Amazon, and especially Amazon Prime members will get this sort of next day, max 2 days sort of time frame. Maybe the worst case, you'll wait 5. So I think we're going to go back to the normalcy, which is Amazon is the fastest. Best Buy has the 64 and the 128, and both of those you'll get it by early next week as well, or sooner if you pay extra. All right, new games this week. I got 5 new games I want to cover with you. The first one is one that I talked about just last week, and that is Pinball FX2. Pinball FX2 is made by Zen Studios, and they've taken their game that's already on just about every device you can think of, including all the other VR headsets, and it's a pretty decent product. I played it on the Vive, I played it on the Rift, I played it on the Go, I played it now on the Quest, and the experience on all of platforms is very, very similar. I will say, I was a little disappointed when I loaded the first table, which is Epic Quest. And as you know, if you watched last week, it's my favorite table, actually. I really, really like it. I know there's many others you can buy, and there's some really cool tables in the packages. But I really like Epic Quest. I just found something about it that I really enjoy. I spent a lot of hours already in this on my Vive. I played with a 1080 Ti for a number of years. And so I'm very familiar with this particular table. And when I jumped into it in the Quest, I gotta tell you, I was pretty disappointed. And not so much at the resolution, although it's definitely not as crisp because they have to do a lot of I guess downsampling because it looks more grainy, maybe more foveated rendering. I don't know what it is, but definitely one of the least smooth experiences I've had on the Quest in terms of graphics. It looked very you saw a lot of pixelation. But the thing that really caught me off guard more than that is just the complete lack of shadows and lighting. There's none. And I was ready to forgive that. But now that I've tried Red Matter, my expectations have been raised. And when I'm looking around at what Zen Studios has created for the Quest here, I'm like, yeah, it's good. It's passable. I like it. But you guys really do need to step up your game. There's better tools available, and I know this game just came out, and some of these new tools are just coming out now. We'll talk about that more when we jump down to the hardware and software section, because there's some cool news about graphics. So I know it's possible, and so I forgive Zen Studios, but my challenge to them would be, please go back, look at your graphics engine. If you're in Unity, you're gonna have to wait. If you're using Unreal, it's available now to upgrade your graphics. If you have your own graphics engine, you're gonna have some work ahead of you, because there's new technology that's available that can make your game better. And I really think that you can make Pinball FX2 just as good as it is on PC VR. I've seen it in other games, and when I look at this game in particular, it's simple. There's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of geometry. Heck, if you have to make the rest of the room go black so you can put more graphical power into the table, please, because I find it disappointing. I'm surprised. Lighting, for me, actually has a lot more benefit than I thought. But it's a great game, and if you like pinball, it's a must-have. You'll get past this lighting issue, and when it eventually gets implemented, you'll definitely appreciate it. It gives it a lifelike realism that's lacking right now, but the game is great. And like I said last week, because it's VR and the latency is very low, and it feels much more real-time, much more than on any other console or PC. Hands down, it's the best experience in VR. It's $14.99. It's already getting a 4.6 out of 5 on the Oculus store, and that's out of 29 reviews so far. And this video you've been seeing this whole time, this is actually by Wagner Tech Talks. He's a Metaverse Adventure subscriber. He and I have been communicating over email for the past few weeks, and he put up a new video here that you can go and watch. It's not really a review of Pinball FX, it's more of an overview. Really, John here likes to put in overviews than reviews, and I like this style because it really leaves it to you, the viewer, to interpret what you're seeing, and is that good, is that bad? He's just putting out the facts to you. So if you want to go see more about Pinball FX2 before you go by, go check out John's video. All right, carrying on with the whole graphics theme, last week I put up this awesome video where we saw Red Matter, what they started with, and then when they optimized the Unreal Engine, what they ended up with. And the results are, at least here we thought last week, looked spectacular. And I'm very happy to report that the game came out just this past week, midweek, and the reviews online and everywhere are jaw-dropping. And I've tried this myself, and it has definitely raised the bar for my graphical expectations. And that's why I said in my last story that, hey, Pinball FX2, come talk to this development crew. Please bring it over to your game. In fact, I think all games are going to have a real hard look at this technology, find out what they did, and get their hands on it, because the bar has totally been raised. And while maybe it's not exactly high-end PC VR, it is so close to it, I'm a little surprised. I thought these graphics we're seeing here would be Gen 2. Maybe even a bit better than this, at most. But I'm shocked to see this, that we're like 5 months out of the gates and we're seeing spectacular graphics. And the best part of all, it's a spectacular game as well. So not just one of those games that are all about the graphics. And I know you played those back on flat screen gaming, or pancake gaming as they call it. But this one here, it scores a 4.9 out of 5 already in the Oculus store, and it has over 40 reviews. And that's just in a matter of days. So this is one of the higher scoring games. And before you buy this thinking that it's a first-person shooter, it's not. It's not. It's a puzzle game And of course, you're in the first person experiencing it. It's a puzzle game more than really anything else. So just to set your expectations, but there are going to be some games that are first person shooters coming out. We'll talk about those more shortly. Another game that came out this week is one called Time Stall. Time Stall is from developer Force Field Entertainment. You may have tried some of their other apps because some of them are free, including Anne Frank House, which got a 4.7 on the Oculus Quest store, and the National Geographic Explorer, among others. And they got some cool titles. Well, Time Stall came out. It's in the store right now, and it also gets a very high review. In fact, it gets a 5.0. Now, this is a game that I actually purchased. And I have to say, it is a interesting game. I like it. I like it a lot. It has made me want to play in bigger spaces because the levels are not so much about you moving around. If you have a space that's big enough, and I would say the biggest level that I've seen thus far, the biggest area that you can walk around, because if you go beyond that, it just goes black. There is a certain limit no matter how much space you have. If you have a space that's somewhere in the 12 by 12 feet, I would guesstimate you would not need to use any artificial locomotion. So something to think about. It's not a sort of exploratory game where you're going through the ship like you might think. This is about scenes you're put in. You've got a boundary that you can explore, and then within that you use time sort of abilities to stop time and start moving things around and prevent, impending doom or hazards or death. It's a fun game. I really like it. I don't know if I would give it a 5.0. I feel like that it might be in the 4.7, 4.6 range. And the reason being is I find that ultimately, I don't like the mechanic where you go to a certain point and maybe there's a hallway that's in front of you, but you get halfway through that hallway and it goes black because the game has put up this boundary saying this is the play space. And I do understand that they need to constrain the play space, but the way they've implemented it, I just hate it. I'd rather have some sort of natural barrier than just a black screen that comes up. I guess if I put my head through a wall that I get a black screen, I think I can accept that, but I don't like that I go down a hallway and it goes to a black screen. And I just find that for me dropped me to a 4.6. It felt like a mechanic that could have been so much better. And if they're gonna make a level of the hallway, why not? Why not let me go down it? And maybe I'll find out that I can't do anything down there and I have to go do the only option I could have done anyways, but I would rather a little different. But I will say this, when I put the game on for the first time and I experienced the opening and the explaining and all this, it felt like for the first time I saw a hint of a AAA title. It's very polished. I just wish that when you fail, you want to reload. I just wish the whole loop was faster, because you're going to fail. You fail a lot because you don't necessarily see, it all comes at you so fast, you don't know what's going on. You're going to do 2, 3, 4 tries per level. Maybe you get lucky and get in the first or second try here and there, but it's an interesting game. I really like it, and I recommend if you like puzzle games, and this is strictly puzzle. There's a little bit of shooting, but it's a puzzle game, 100% puzzles. Another game that came out this week is Ninja Quest. Ninja Quest is by Coin Flip Studios, and it's designed to really give you a heavy dose of sort of, epic moments of battling all sorts of enemies coming at you from all different directions, and you're gonna feel badass. In fact, that's one of the primary things this developer built into the game, was to give you a sense of frenzy, and you have to deal with this problem, and when you do overcome it, you feel really good. The reason why I say that is that you can't actually move around the environment. You're sort of fixed in a place, and you just have like waves of different characters coming at you, and NPCs coming at you and attacking you. But it is a wave shooter, and I know a lot of you are really into that. They're very exhilarating, especially when you're fixed in one spot and your enemies are coming at you. It gets a 4.5 in the Oculus store, so again, a decent review. Although, I find with the Oculus, there's very few games that get less than 4. That's probably because of the curation of these games, but I also think that in a year from now, we'll look back at some of these titles that go to 4.5 and realize that maybe they got a little higher than they should have because the system was so new and didn't have a lot of titles. And Ninja Legends is probably one that I would put there.